Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Hammer Museum. Thank you. I'm Claudia Besser. I'm the Director of Public Programs here, and tonight it's such an honor to welcome artist Lynn Hershman Leeson to the Hammer to celebrate the publication of her new memoir, Private Eye, which was just published by Z Books, Michael Zilka's imprint, and it was released on November 4th. So we're very excited to be part of the initial round. Lynn is going to be in conversation tonight with Margot Norton, the chief curator at the Berkeley Art Museum and Pacific Film Archive, and they're going to discuss Lynn's life and work, interspersed with clips and images from Lynn's work. Lynn has a lifelong commitment to experimentation, embracing film, video, AI chatbots, touchscreens, and even her own DNA, challenging ideas of identity and warning of the perils of technology and surveillance, and all of this years before it was on anybody else's radar. In her new memoir, Private Eye, she shares her personal journey and the struggle for her visionary work to be recognized as art. In the 1970s, women artists were often dismissed unless they were linked to more successful male counterparts. But defying this marginalization, Lynn carved her own path, creating groundbreaking conceptual works and innovative installations that took place in unconventional venues, hotels, department store windows, San Quentin State Prison, and housing projects. To support fellow artists, she launched the Floating Museum, bringing site-specific art to reclaimed public spaces. Again, all of this way before other people were doing it. And to shine a spotlight on fellow women artists, she made the acclaimed documentary Women, Art, Revolution, War, which we screened here at the Hammer as soon as it was released. After years of being marginalized, Hershman's work has gained much recognition and accolades recently. The brilliant art historian Margot Norton curated her first major New York retrospective in 2021 called Lynn Hershman Leeson Twisted at the New Museum. And MoMA organized a retrospective of Leeson's films in 2024, and her work is up there right now in the group exhibition on view, which name just escaped me, 60s Surreal, thank you, and her solo show at the Altman Siegel Gallery, Lynn Hershman About Time, just closed last month. At its core, this new memoir, Private Eye, is a moving portrait of resilience, artistic innovation, and personal transformation through friendship, family, and fearless creativity. And it's such an honor to celebrate its publication tonight with this dialogue. None of this would have been possible without the formidable art historian, Margot Norton. Margot, as I mentioned, is chief curator at the Berkeley Art Museum and Pacific Film Archive, where she leads the curatorial team and is currently working on a retrospective exhibition of Maren Hassinger's work, which will open in June 2026. Norton was previously the senior curator at the New Museum in New York, where she curated over 40 exhibitions, including solo shows with Carmen Orgarte, Deirdre Brackens, Wangechi Mutu, and the Lynn Hershman Leeson retrospective, as well as the 2021 New Museum Triennial. She's also co-founder of Museums Moving Forward, an independent organization devoted to envisioning and creating a more just museum sector by 2030. After tonight's discussion, I want to invite you all to join us in the lobby for some light refreshments and a book signing. And if you want to stay updated on our upcoming programs and events, please sign up for our newsletter, where you can sign up in the lobby as well. Thank you all for joining us tonight. And now please join me in welcoming Lynn Hershman Leeson and Margot Norton.
Hello. Thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you, Claudia, for that great introduction. I'm really thrilled to be in conversation this evening with the incredible Lynn Hershman Leeson to celebrate this amazing book, Private Eye. And I have to say, having worked with Lynn on her retrospective at New Museum and getting to know all of these stories of hers, it's amazing to have them all under one cover. And it's riveting. I found myself reading this and couldn't put it down. And these stories that she tells in this book are really important, I think, for generations to learn from and to kind of see it. Also, may I just say, how did you get all of that done in a lifetime? It's amazing. It's, really like an incredible portrait of your work as an artist, a filmmaker, a teacher, a producer of other artists' works, a mother, an activist, and seeing the scope of your important and characteristically prescient insights is really remarkable. So as Claudia mentioned, Lynn and I worked previously on her exhibition Twisted at New Museum, which opened in 2021, deep in the pandemic. And for that exhibition, we centered on a theme that runs throughout Lynn's practice from the beginning of her career, as we'll see, right up until the present, which is this intersection between technology and the self. She has consistently worked with the latest technologies, sometimes, often anticipating them before they're developed or working with them as they're developed, from touch screen technology in the 80s to artificial intelligence in the 90s to DNA programming most recently, and often anticipating the impact of these technological advancements on our most intimate selves. I have to start by reading a quote from Lynn from a text that she wrote in 1988, which blows my mind. You might hear me say the words blow my mind many times during this talk. She wrote, "Imagine a world in which there is a blurring between the soul and the chip, a world in which artificially implanted DNA is genetically bred to create an enlightened and self-replicating intelligent machine, which perhaps uses the human body as a vehicle for mobility." That was in 1988. Lynn has been called prescient her entire life, but I think you'll see through what we'll share today that her prescience is absolutely remarkable. You're one of those artists that pick up on the tremors before they become earthquakes. And I think it's just incredibly important to listen to artists like you. Lynn and I thought we could begin with a story from the book itself, which she will read, and which details the first time that she realized the possibility of working with technology as a high school student, from a chapter in the book called Cyborgs. In this text, you also describe some of your earliest artistic influences and how you fell in love with technology. And now I will hand it over to you.
Thank you. Well, it's a great pleasure to be here, and our book Private Eye, a memoir, will be here I will be signing them after it is published by Z Press. Michael Zolka is also here, who initiated Z Press, and I'm very honored to have this publication for it. So I'm going to just read a few things first. These are from the book. The Cleveland Museum, which I went to as much as I could when I was growing up or trying not to grow up, drawings, particularly the works of Leonardo da Vinci, launched me into rapture, and it's absolutely true. And I dreamed of being able to draw like him and to imitate his lines. I noted that his strategy of alternating deep and subtle lines to define the human form, our only commonality was that Leonardo used inexpensive materials that at that time flaked off the canvas. I used newsprint and thin non-archival paper for drawings, which caused my fragile lines to fade and disappear. After repeated futile attempts to copy his work, I finally produced an image of a female draped in a nude cloth. Female nude draped in cloth. To preserve my drawings, I asked the secretary at my junior high school to use the state-of-the-art Xerox machine. She agreed, so I used the office phone to let my grandmother know I'd be late. She mentioned my grandfather had come home from work not feeling well and asked if I wanted to say hello, but because I was eager to use the Xerox machine, I told her I didn't have time. Then cautiously, I approached the bulky copy machine. It occupied a quarter of the small office, and I inserted the drawing into its feeder. I pressed the start, held my breath, and the drawing quickly disappeared into the machine. Seconds later, deep churning sounds gurgled from the innards. I waited for the copy to emerge, but the drawing stayed inside. Terrified, I carefully lifted the latch, as well as its secret interior panel, and was horrified to realize that my precious creation was helplessly stuck between the two heavy ink rollers. It was as if the belly of the machine had been impregnated by this image and refused to release it until it gestated. I felt I had to rescue it. My hand reached inside again to the metal enclosures, and slowly, carefully, I tugged at the paper. After several sweat-soaked minutes, my mashed and crinkled former masterpiece was freed from the tight metal grip. The drawing had been transformed. No longer was it a perfectly drawn body. The devil machine had merged, ripped, and deformed my masterpiece. I couldn't breathe. Pain flooded my body, and my eyes squeezed shut as tears trickled down my face. The original drawing was gone forever, but in its place was a piece of paper in which deep black lines had soaked into the wrinkles, slashes, slits, and gashes. Heartbroken, I wondered if I would ever make another good drawing. But when I looked at it again, my perspective changed because the fragile, hand-rendered human body I drew became vibrantly alive. The process was an unlikely marriage of human input and technological output, and the resulting hybrid image may have been inspired by Leonardo, but was reborn as a work with no historic precedent or aesthetic preconceptions. It was the birth of a new species of art that incorporated technology as part of its creation. The unintended consequences of this merger was an artwork that represented not just the present, but the future. In this iteration, the machine was neither the enemy nor the devil, but a co-conspirator partnering in this symbiotic human-machine interaction. Its unthinking process had completed my drawing. Technology could be a partner, I thought, in artistic creation. And this was 1955, and the term cyborg would not be coined for another 5 years.
It's really so beautiful. I feel like you've always been a writer. Hearing that, I'm remembering how I remember you talked a little bit in a great profile of you in the New York Times about how glitches are the key to discovery. And I just love that.
Yeah, and mistakes, constantly, absolutely. If you're open to the fact that mistakes are important, otherwise you wouldn't make them.
Totally. And of course, you would go on your whole career to collaborate with technology in this way. So the image that we have up on screen at the moment is a very early drawing of yours from 1963 called Cyborg Woman. And, you know, what you just mentioned, too, about the kind of when that word was coined. I'm just thinking about, too, like how what drew you to become interested in this idea of looking inside or thinking about what the mechanics might be inside of the body?
I think actually it came from the fact that I had heart problems and had a lot of x-rays of myself done. And so looking inside myself was often the revealing method of understanding what my future could be. And so that was always part of not accepting the present, but thinking about the fragility and of time that was left.
Which is also something that I think is kind of recurring throughout your work, right? This idea of time and this idea of the kind of resilient yet very fragile nature of life. This is another image of an early drawing of an X-ray man. The heart appears in a lot of these early drawings as well. And I love this one too because you are almost extending the drawing out into space with this mechanical arm. And of course, also around this time, you were developing works in wax, which later turned into your breathing machines. And I wanted to ask you a bit about these as well. I mean, the story of these is so remarkable. And, I think you had become known for these early drawings, but there was a way that you were kind of extending from the page out into these sculptural forms, which also were one of the first works with sound.
Yeah. I don't know what to say about them, except that, these are just wax casts of myself. Most of these things were done for myself because I couldn't afford to hire anybody, nor did I know that you could. And I just would cast myself, and then with inexpensive materials, and cast it in wax of different variations with glass eyes, and then added breathing and other parts to make it appear more real.
And what drew you to want to incorporate sound into these works? Like, what was, and then how did you figure out how to do it?
It just seemed like a natural thing to just not have a static object, because we breathe, and you put breathe or giggling or words, and it just gives it a completely different sense. Sensors that where you walked up to it and it would respond to you. So it became really an interaction between the viewer and the piece.
I imagine that it was quite a surprise at the time for people to come up to a sculpture and then to have it talk to them.
Yeah, they closed a number of shows.
I mean, this is what happens when you're ahead of your time sometimes. What do I say,
Yeah, the University Art Museum closed it in less than 24 hours.
Yeah, this was a show that was where I work at the Berkeley Art Museum. We're
But
not going to
not
do that
then.
again.
Yeah.
Not then, no. But you had some of these in an exhibition that were censored, and I mean, it's just I think it's just so remarkable to think about that time that you were making these, and also how you'll see throughout this presentation too that you never really stayed stuck in one way of working. You were always thinking about what the work needs and then figuring out a way to get that done. So this is a great example of that. At the time, after that show was censored, and you mentioned a number of shows and having difficulty showing your work, you started this. It's an artwork, but it was also your thesis, right? The three critics, I'll let you talk about this, but I'm just so I really love this piece too, because of course it was very difficult for women artists to get shows, and it's incredible how you manipulated the system to insert yourself into art history in this way, with writing about your work and the work of other women artists who weren't getting shows. And then at the same time, of course, making an absolutely brilliant work about identity. So tell me a bit about the three critics, and who were they, what were they like, and how did each of them have their own story?
Yeah, because if I did work, they would disappear because nobody would write about them. And so I invented these three critics: Herbert Good, Gay Abandon, and Prudence Juris. And they wrote for international magazines. One wrote for a well-known Studio International in London. One wrote for a throwaway newspaper that came against your door. And another one wrote for a New York art magazine. So if you have three critics, all had different names, different genders and would write about the work, people started to notice the work. Who is it that's what is this work that's provoking this much attention? Nobody knowing that I was the one that was doing it. But I figured it didn't matter. I mean, if there's that much prejudice in the world that they wouldn't show work because of your gender, then I think that invoked the idea of a rebellious counter action to change that.
It's so brilliant. And I just love how, like what you could get away with. You're finding out, like, you reach an obstacle, and what are the ways around that obstacle? How can I get past it and, really say something important with it? It reminds me of the Roberta Breitmore project too, because, in this, I mean, it's amazing to think about. This is 1972, and you created an avatar, an alternate identity, named Roberta Breitmore, and performed as her for 7 years. You called it a private performance because, it was something that, took time to develop, that, you were Lynn at home and Roberta outside. And I kind of think about this project as just so influential. So tell me about her. What did she do, and how did it begin? What was the first thing that Roberta did?
Well, first I had to make her construction, which you're looking at now, the construction chart. And she was blonde, wore a lot of makeup, as you see how she put on her makeup. And she didn't do anything. She was just a normal person and would go out and live her life, but document it. I hired somebody to photograph her, but she collected credit cards and driver's license and checking accounts, go out and ride a bus in her outfits. But I documented to see what the reality of identity is. And strangely enough, Roberta was able to get credit cards, but I couldn't. and so, the veracity of a fictional, non-existing being being able to insert themselves into the into the organics of real life, where I just was somebody who was discarded at the time, was I think really telling for that era.
And I know that Roberta also, we've talked about her before also as a precursor for artificial intelligence, and the way that she was also kind of an amalgam, a representation of an ideal woman. You were kind of compiling, what that would be like.
Oh, that what was considered ideal at that time.
Right. And then, of course, she was a blank slate. She went out into the world. She developed her experiences that would shape her history, her personality, her credit, and almost become her own kind of intelligent machine.
Yes.
And this is a later instance of the Roberta project. So she multiplied.
What?
She multiplied.
Oh, there were multiples, So, Roberta existed, but then there were other Roberta multiples that would go out and have their own adventures too. And they all kept very careful records of how they experienced things and how people reacted to them. And so it just expanded the depth of possibilities for Robertas in the world.
There's amazing archives from this project. We're really only getting at the tip of it. I mean, at the New Museum show, I think we had like her clothing, her psychiatric reports.
She saw a real psychiatrist. Yeah. Who wondered why she was wearing a wig. I got the records afterwards.
Amazing. Oh my God. All right, so we're going to pivot to talk about another piece called The Electronic Diaries, and we prepared a little clip from The Electronic Diaries too. So a few years after this project, I call this piece your magnum opus. It's a project that's still ongoing, which is comprised of your own stories, personal stories, such as those told in your memoirs, for sure, but also directly to the video camera. And, one of the amazing things about this work is that you are combating stigmas. You are talking about truths and widespread issues. The personal is political. You're speaking about your own experiences, and I think in doing so too, you kind of forge this artistic path to survival. And so we chose 2 clips to illustrate the work. One from the very beginning, which kind of introduces the piece, and then another one, which is one of my favorite clips, which you'll see in which the screen multiplies, and you'll see. It's one of the most prescient, resonant parts from the work. But I don't know. Do you have anything else you want to say about the piece before we share the clip? And of course, these continue to this day. Your electronic diaries.
Yeah.
You just came out with a new one.
Yeah, number 7. About Time. It's called About Time.
And there's another part that we didn't show, but I mean, just looking at what you were talking about in '84, thinking about the proliferation of screens and thinking about what we live in now, what you were anticipating would become. I kind of selected this image of seduction, and then also this following film, Seduction of a Cyborg. Seduction is part of a phantom limb series of photographs that Lynn created with different technological devices attached to the body. But I was curious too about this relationship that you had with the camera and with screens during this time. It feels like there was this simultaneous attraction and repulsion that you kind of knew that it could be dangerous somehow, but also it was quite intimate. And this piece, Seduction of a Cyborg, kind of speaks to those, that double edge of technology. And I'm curious if it was reflecting your own sentiments at that time.
I think I was looking more at the opportunities that technology gave us to understand both ourselves and our place in culture. Given the fact they live in the Bay Area, where many of the processes were being invented, so simultaneous to the programs being made, I was using them pretty much as a method to really explore and discover the possibilities for human futures.
I mean, it's I think always present throughout the work, that kind of the hope that exists within it too, right? I mean, I love that line that we just saw from Electronic Diaries, where you say, "I didn't know what power was or how easy it was to turn it on." So this is Agent Ruby. She's a work in artificial intelligence that you developed in the 90s. How did you find out that was possible at that time?
I think if you dream something or you imagine it and you have it in your mind, that you can do it. And so I thought, why can't you talk to a computer screen and have it talk back and have a conversation with it and have it become alive? So I started to find programmers who would engage with this idea also. And eventually I had 18 programmers from the Bay Area trying to solve the idea of being able to create, I guess, essentially just a chatbot that you could, that would respond both to the information on the internet as well as somebody outside that could talk to them and enter their screen space. And that's how it became just an intriguing challenge to people to see if it was possible. But I always think if you can imagine something, you could do it.
So this is really the birth of AI. this piece in a lot of ways. And she's quite funny, and you can interact with her online. And I did for our show.
Yeah, that's important. Yeah. You have to have a sense of humor. can't live long without one.
Yeah, it's true. So this was also a character in this feature film that you made called Technolust, starring Tilda Swinton. And it's also, Agent Ruby is connected to this piece, but it's almost like she could come out of the screen and, speak to you.
Yeah, Agent Ruby was a character in the film, and I wanted to have an audience be able to see the film and go and participate in the film. So that's why we made her into this interactive chatbot that people could respond to, no matter where they were, as long as they were online.
And, this is also work that, connects, I think, a lot to this relationship with desire in technology. This is, Siri before Siri. It's the figure of a woman also, with this kind of like idealized, version of a woman that was very much related to how people use technology even to this day.
Yeah, I agree.
This is a clip from Technolust. So Rosetta Stone is the name of the scientist, right? The Rosetta Stone is the scientist, right? And she, in the film, this is so good. She creates these self-replicating automatons, right?
Yeah, in her basement.
And
They were RGB, ruby, marine, and olive.
amazing. I love how you always play with, these, there's always like a meaning to, even Roberta, she's a robot. Yeah, there's always a meaning behind it. It also, of course, from Agent Ruby came Dina, right? Who was also a chatbot, but her name is based on DNA.
DNA on the internet, Dina. Yeah.
Again, of course, like this connection, right, between like programming the genome at this time, right, and this idea of artificially intelligent beings.
Yes.
And so that kind of leads me to this recent project, the Infinity Engine, which the date is 2014, but you were kind of looking into what scientists were doing in terms of DNA programming for years before that, even.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I started in 2008 to seek scientists who were doing this experimentation, from George Church at Harvard to people all over the world, that I would seek out in order to learn, how you would construct the genome and how you could edit genes and what you could make, and if you could cross-reference different species, and just learn about the possibilities once CRISPR was invented.
So this is the installation of the Infinity Engine, which has this great wallpaper, wallpapering the world, right,
Yeah.
with these different species. And we even at the New Museum had fish that were genetically bred.
Yeah. That was the easy part.
The fish, right? It's sort of endless. And this blows my mind. I said blows my mind. There you go. This is a part of the Infinity Engine called Room 8, where you have your archive in DNA.
Yeah.
And so who can take an artist's archive and put it into DNA?
A really good scientist, and this was Dr. Thomas Huber in Switzerland, who was able to take all of the possibilities from the works I had made it up to that time and convert it all on a molecular level into DNA itself. So you have 40 years of work that takes all this space up, and then you have it put into a little vial that's 3 inches tall by a half an inch. So it's really good for storage.
I love that the best way to archive work is the way that biology has always done it. Just figured out how to make that happen. And then what's in the other vial? The antibody.
Yeah, that's an antibody that was made from to counteract the toxins that are in culture. So you take that
Like you.
What?
Like you.
Yeah,
So wait,
it's meant as an injection. So,
amazing. And so we're actually going to kind of close the program this evening with a very recent film that you have created called Logic Paralyzes the Heart, which premiered at the 2022 Venice Biennale, curated by Cecilia Alamani, titled The Milk of Dreams, which goes back to the subject that we started with at the beginning of this presentation, the cyborg. The actor Joan Chen portrays the very first cyborg who adopts the guise of a human. I don't know if, Lynn, if you have, further words about this work and why you chose to show it with us this evening.
well, I think we're talking about the evolution of cyborgs over time, and in the work I was doing, this is a recent one, that I'm still working with.
And I mean, this was 4 years ago, but it's interesting even to think about the changes that have happened over the last 4 years and how prescient this work even was at its time. And before we start this clip, because then, after, or the film, we're going to play the whole film, which is about 12 minutes. But on the final page of your book, there's a part that I found particularly resonant, and I just wanted to read it myself, if that's okay. And especially just knowing you. I have been relentless in the pursuit of my art. That, I have realized, is the MacGuffin of my life. Persistence of vision has been attributed to the retina's imperfection. It's a way of seeing that we believe to be there. It is the afterimage of the optimist. It is an illusion that relies on time to wink into the future and coax it into reality. I have been nothing if not persistent. I just wanted to end to say thank you. Thank you to you for your persistent vision. It's a call to action for all artists to follow theirs. Despite revealing technological perils and cultural toxicities through your practice, I also find your work to be very hopeful.
Absolutely. Yeah, what's the alternative? Yeah.
All right, so here's Logic Paralyzes the Heart. So we have a few moments to take questions from the audience. And I don't know, maybe before we do, we just put up an image here of one of Lynn's latest. This is an anti-aging drug. How did you get this? Where can I get some? No.
Actually, it was made in a lab in Switzerland. And you have to take it every day. It's very expensive also, but it regenerates your cells. And, for people who want to extend their life, this is one of the things that's being developed. Actually, this is actually 5 years old. Yeah.
And so people are actually taking this. Did you take it?
No.
Oh, phew. No. Yeah, please, if anybody has a question, raise your hand and then someone will come by with a microphone.
Hello. Yes, this is very interesting. Thank you both. I have a question about Agent Ruby, who I talked to earlier today, and she was funny. I'm wondering why it's Agent Ruby. I know that's a term for chatbots as well, but why have agent in the name?
She's called Agent Ruby. Why Agent?
Because she is agency. It was part of a film called Technolust, and uh, that was a character in it. You know, why do we have any kind of characters? But I wanted her to have agency between the real and the virtual worlds.
Hello. So y'all were discussing your amazing prescience, and I was wondering what you might have predicted that you thought would have happened by now that you were mistaken about, or something that you think that would have happened that hasn't happened, or by now, or you wished would have happened by now, or something like that.
Well, something that that
You
one
thought
hopes would happen
Or
is
that you thought would have happened.
What's the last
If
thing you
anything.
The last thing was it, basically, was there anything that you thought might have happened or hoped might have happened that didn't happen?
Yeah, I think quality survival for the entire planet itself, as well as any living, and planet is alive, any living thing, you know, to be able to experience the possibility of a fulfilled dream of their life, rather than any without violence and without the threat of extinction or destruction.
I mean, it's an interesting question because I think a lot about how technology is a tool, right? You know, I mean, it can be used by anyone. And so it's often the message in your work, I feel like, is related to that, right? Like what, you know, we just heard about the, you know, evolution of those worms that are able to eat plastic and water. Like, these are things that, you know, nature finds
created.
a way.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, they weren't made in a lab.
Oh, okay. You were speaking earlier today about how hard it was to write a book, and I was thinking as was listening to your films again, which I've seen before, you've been writing through all of them. I mean, you wrote the whole text, you wrote the scripts, and your writing is just amazing. I wonder if you would just give us a little bit more idea about what you're up to with the anti-aging. That's not just a cute little photo. I know you have some thoughts and plans for it.
Thanks. Thank you, Suzanne Lacey. Um, well, I think it's you know, that we're really part of an evolution, and hopefully our species will continue whether we as individuals do or not. But there are a number of people that are working with ways to extend our life so that we can grow into new possibilities of maturity. And they're having a great deal of progress in doing that. It's not life extension forever, it's just more time.
Yeah. She said, how optimistic of you.
Yeah. Why not?
Oh, wait for the mic.
Is it my turn yet, or?
Yes, please.
Oh, sorry. Just returning to that issue of agency that the gentleman in one of the front rows brought up. It was interesting to see in the film the reference to surveillance technologies used in war theaters brought home, which we're experiencing now, thanks to people like the people of Palantir and so forth, the technologies that have been developed in Middle Eastern warfare, and now they're being brought home to the United States, where we're now living essentially in an authoritarian surveillance state. So I'm wondering, as this kind of I mean, I think of it as a terror, actually, as this terror of the current regime unfolds here in America, although it also affects the EU and other parts of the world too. What do you see the nature of agency changing? In other words, how much with this kind of saturation surveillance, do you think the nature of agency, human agency, will change as well?
Yeah, I think people are becoming more aware of the possibilities that they have to not be victims, and to use technology as a force for their life and all living things. So they're it's not an external path to destruction, but rather a new way of revising possibilities for life in the future. I mean, I have to be optimistic.
Well, I just, sorry to chime in, but I'm also just thinking about like the three critics. Like, you know, instead of just giving in and saying like, okay, this is the way it is. Like, you find a way. You know, humans also have that ability.
Thank you. Could you comment on the role of San Francisco and the Bay Area on your work, because it seems so connected and to that rise of technology as well, and the 60s?
Well, I think I'm fortunate to live in the Bay Area where so much investigation is happening, and it's not difficult to meet people who are key to the investigation. So I get access to a lot of facts and searches before they're made public, and I don't think that would happen anyplace else.
I think we have time for one more question.
Hi, thank you so much for your work. I was so struck by the story of the Xerox machine and the excitement to collaborate with technology. And I was wondering what technology excites you now, and if that collaboration is still present for you.
Yeah, I think all technologies have fascinating elements to it, but I think the possibility of connectivity on this global level allows the hope that that there can be a more unified conversation about evolution.
Thank you, Lynn. Thank you, everyone. There's a book signing following this happening in the lobby, and will be refreshments served. So see you there.